Hi, everyone. Out here on my daily walk with my chief political advisor, Patty. That's her in the background. And she wanted to take a quick break after scrambling up some rocks. And she thought it'd be a good idea for me to start a little mini-series on how to actually influence politicians. It's a question I get more often than not is people are tired of the standard, just call your congressperson, because that never seems to lead to anywhere. And I'm in a position to be able to tell you, as someone who's run for state office, who is trying to formulate a campaign strategy, figure out what I really wanted to champion, what I would vote yes and no on certain things that were coming up, and just generally how to actually campaign from the perspective of someone who's built campaigns. And I want to give you 3 quick tips and 1 pro tip at the end of this to help make it make a little more sense. And the first part of this mini-series, I really just want to talk about voting and the importance of voting. You know, we've all heard President Obama say, don't get mad, vote. We've heard other politicians. We used to have Rock the Vote, which was a bipartisan effort to get more people to vote. And now we have Republican-led states really leading the charge in trying to make it harder for people to vote. Democrat-led states are generally leading the charge to make it easier for people to vote. And I think it's a good moment in time just to pause and say, why? Why should I vote? How do I figure out who to vote for and whatnot? So here's the 3 things I would say that are important. 1, showing up and casting your ballot is public record. In most states, it is not public record who you actually voted for. Why is this important? It means you don't have to vote for everyone. It means you actually don't have to vote for anyone, which will be point 2. But more importantly, just showing up to cast your ballot, regardless of who you vote for, registers you as a voter. As someone who's run campaigns, one of the first things we do is try to figure out the 3 things that really influence a politician are what we think public perception is on certain issues, what people who donate money thinks about certain issues, and what our personal convictions are or personal beliefs are. One of the primary ways, especially for down ballot races, that we figure out what people believe is we look at who has voted in the past. We look at their demographics. Think about it this way. In most states, in most municipalities, it's relatively easy to get things like senior centers approved through referendums. It's relatively easy to get things like tax credits for people who are retired approved. Why? Because they show up in larger numbers than almost any other voting bloc. I'm not saying that those things are bad or wrong. In fact, in my hometown that I live in, I happily supported the senior center project because our seniors certainly deserved a new building. And it's good for our community. But we also went into that vote knowing that there was a huge block of voters that were going to support it, and that's important. So just showing up to vote puts you, your age demographic, all your demographics that are publicly accessible in the mix. If you have a community or someone's trying to represent a community with a lot more small children, the state of the schools are going to be more important. If you have a community that's more elderly, living paycheck to paycheck and on a fixed income, keeping costs down is going to be more important. That's just a natural fluctuation of how it is. And it's more easy for people who are not working, who are retired, to show up to vote than people who are working with families and everything else. I get it. But just showing up to vote matters. The second part of that is, and there's protests happening all over the country from time to time, No Kings rallies and whatnot. Some of the towns nearby had No Kings rallies and they would have thousands of people to show up. Less than 1 in 10 of those folks were actually even registered to vote or voted in the last election. That's where political parties are trying to figure out what is the sustaining power of some of these movements. If people keep showing up to protest but they're not registered to vote, it's not going to move as far as people who do show up to vote and also go protest. So that's point 1. Show up to vote. It will just automatically help shape the messaging in a way that likely will support where you are in life. The second point, knowing who to vote for. I am someone who has never voted straight party line for any election I've ever voted in. I get people do that. That's not how I do it. I also do a bunch of research to figure out who is where on what issue and whatnot, and that isn't viable for a lot of folks. Here's just what I want to say. There is nothing forcing you to vote for anyone on the ballot. You can, if you don't know anything about the election, but you still want at least your demographics heard, you can register to vote, show up to vote, cast a ballot without any of the bubbles circled in or however your state does it. In France, the term for that is carte blanche. France, the expectation of voting is a little different than what we have here. It is a perfectly viable option to just not vote for anyone. It's also a perfectly viable option to only vote for the races that you know about. If there's a presidential race and you heard that and have an opinion, you can vote for that person and not vote for anyone else down ballot. In fact, it annoys me as someone who's run for state office, but when it's a presidential year, a lot of people will just vote for president and vote for congressman, senator if they're on the ballot. And they will not vote for the state offices because they don't know us. I get it. With all that being said, vote for who you're comfortable with. Don't feel like you have to fill in every bubble. Hopefully that makes it a little easier to decide to show up to vote in the first place. My third point is this. When you show up to vote, I, as a candidate, am trying to figure out who I'm going to try to influence to win my next election. Part of that is also who am I going to send information to? Here in Connecticut, we have publicly financed elections, so we have limited amount of money to spend on things like mailers, phone calls, text messages, all the annoying stuff that we don't like to see, advertisements. But that is a way to help get informed in a way that it will automatically come to you. But because we have limited time, we have limited resources, for me to make a decision to go knock on your door and talk to you personally, for me to send mail to your house and or to your neighbor's house, it has to seem like it's worth it. And in political science research, we're all taught it really takes about 7 touch points to convince someone to vote for you. So 4 pieces of mail, a phone call will get you to 5, a text message will get you to 6, and me showing up to door knock will get you to 7. That's generally how most campaigns try to organize how they reach out to you in the first place. But because we have only so much time to go door knocking, we only have so many mailers to send out, we have to decide who they go to. And one of the first cuts we do of who's not going to get it is if people just never vote, they're not going to get it. It's unfortunate that that's how the system works. And I really wish that we could have more participation in the electoral process so more people would have to get communicated with. But for someone who ran for office, who was running full time, and I knocked on 9,000 doors over the course of 2 campaigns, and I was putting in basically another full-time job worth of work, there just wasn't any more to give. So I'm not making excuses for myself, but at the end of the day, if you register to vote and show up to vote, you will get information on who's running, and you don't have to vote for them just because they mailed you something, but you will get their information. So those are my 3 points on why voting matters. Just showing up to vote in the first place will automatically shift the election. Showing up not knowing who to vote for is totally fine. And then the third point is that's the way you also get information delivered to you, is by voting. And here's my pro tip. Talk to your family, talk to your neighbors. Other people are doing this research and you're not in this alone. It's okay to vote one way, one election, another way, another election, because you learn more information. You're not, one vote for one person is not a pledge to support them for life. It shouldn't be. So don't be afraid to go out there and cast a vote for someone, even if you don't have all the information. Getting more people to participate is how we start to change things for the better, and you could be a part of that. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please click like on this video, drop a comment below, and click that subscribe button. It'll help the YouTube algorithm make sure that these videos are getting into your feed. Thank you.